Hello. Hopefully this time it works. We did this about 10 minutes ago, and due to the fact that none of us are techies, we are having a little bit of difficulty getting this on running perfectly. But here we are. The purpose for my being here, the purpose for you being here, hopefully, is to ask as many questions as you can possibly think of. This is not going to be a long talk about all the wonderful, wise experiences we have and all the sharing that I can do with you. That's not what it's about. This is about finding some real questions that you are struggling with at the moment, and maybe not struggling, but just in the back of your mind. And hopefully, I'll be able to answer them. So let's start with the first question.
Do mistaken beliefs ever truly completely go away?
The wonderful, delightful question is, do mistaken beliefs ever truly go away? It's such a delightful question because it's only asked by an ego, because the ego knows that it's not make it absolutely impossible for me to ever let go of my beliefs, and the ego makes those beliefs. So it's kind of a trap question. But the answer to that question at a deeper level is yes, maybe they go away, maybe they don't. But what I do know for a fact is that they get weaker and weaker and weaker. That I know. So the more diligent I am with questioning what I believe, the more diligent, disciplined I am with immediately processing whenever there's an upset, the more willing I am to actually recognize that all my beliefs are completely and utterly insane, the weaker they will become. That's for sure. I've had a number of beliefs that I believe firmly now have been relinquished, no longer run the show. There's still some that do. I always say it's a work in progress. Yes, I still have some beliefs. The belief I mostly still work with is the belief that I can lose love. Is that true? No, I cannot lose love. But that's one of the beliefs that still comes up from time to time. I hope for there are more questions. Next question, please.
I've been doing this work for a year now, and I still can't stand to be in the room with my mother. What should I do?
I love that question. I don't know if you can hear because the wind is howling beautifully. The question is, I've been doing this work for a year now, and I still cannot stand to be in the room with my mother. Completely understandable, because you think you're in the room with your mother, but you're not. You're in the room with someone you've invented. You're in the room with a blank screen that you've projected all your beliefs on. And that's what you call your mother. So who you cannot stand in that relationship is you. You're faced with yourself. And so how long will it take before you can even ask the question in a more simple way? How long will it take before I can look in the mirror and be completely in love with what I see? I can guarantee you that when I started doing my work, that was one of the most difficult things I could possibly think of doing. Looking in the mirror and saying, I love you. Once you learn how to do that, and one that actually makes sense, your mother is no longer an issue. Your mother never was the issue. I hope that answers your question.
How long does it take for me to be happy automatically?
The wonderful ego asks, how long will it be before I will be happy automatically? The answer is, how long do you want that to take? I can also, again, from my own experience, say that being happy is a state which is the result of doing our work, is the result of doing our processing, and increasingly it becomes automatic. Increasingly my life is full and rich and full of joy. So how long will it take? I have no idea. That's your call. How long do you want it to take? But if I am attached, and it sounds like an attachment, if I am attached to the idea that I'll be automatically happy, then I believe that would probably be a bit of a trap. Because I don't think it's going to be automatic for a little while. In the beginning, it is an absolute learned behavior. I have to learn to be in love. I have to learn to listen to the ego. I have to learn to say, no, I'm not listening to the ego. I'm going to ask my loving self, is there another way of seeing it? And the answer then will bring what I'm talking about now, which is a deep, deep state of happiness.
How long until I can practice the 6 steps to freedom on my own?
Now, that's an interesting question. This question, the person just asked, how long until I can practice the 6 steps to freedom on my own? And that's a very strange question, because I designed the 6-step process originally to be done on my own. Because we had another process before, which was a wonderful process. There's a few changes we made to that. There are quite a few changes. But the biggest change probably would be it needed another person. And I don't want to be dependent on my immediate processing on another person. That other person may not be around. That other person may be around, but not willing to participate in a particular healing at this moment. So I intentionally designed it so that I'm not dependent on another person. I can do the 6-step process on my own right now. There's nothing stopping me, nothing, other than a belief. And that belief might be, I'm not good enough. The belief might be, I can't do things on my own. I need somebody else. It might be, I'm weak. And I hope that answers your question. If you have any comments while we're talking, please enter your comments, because I can see those on my screen and I can answer any questions that come up on the screen as well. Also, let us know where you're from, because we're really interested in where the audience is. And thirdly, please hit the like button. And all of these things have to do with logarithms, and I don't even know what that word means, but it's apparently very important. So hit the like button, let us know where you're from, and keep asking questions and make as many comments as you like.
I've been trying and trying and trying to get this innocent thing, and my ego tells me constantly that the forgiveness process is stupid. What should I do?
Beautiful question. Again, you probably didn't hear it, but I'll repeat it. I've been trying and trying and trying to get this innocent thing, but my ego keeps saying this is stupid and it won't work. What to do about that? Well, I think the first thing that I would like to say to you about that is stop asking your ego for its opinion. Stop asking your ego, how am I doing? Your ego will never say you are loved. Your ego will never say you're innocent. Your ego is the idea of guilt. How can it say you're innocent? It goes against it, who it is. If it were to say that, it would cease to exist. So that's not going to happen. The ego is not going to do that. However, right now, when you feel a little guilt, you can immediately turn to your loving self and say, help me see this differently. Help me see this differently. There must be another way. And as I do that regularly, consistently, all day long, the ego gets weaker and weaker. Will it ever disappear? I have no idea. I'm not attached to that.
I just read your book and I love it. Do I need to go to a workshop or Costa Rica to do this?
Brilliant question. This really smart person, obviously very smart, read my book and loved it. By all means, see if you're as smart as she is and read my book. And the second part of the question is, do I need to go to a workshop? Do I need to go to France or Costa Rica or Switzerland or Holland or Vancouver? And the answer is, I don't know. I remember a long, long time ago, I received an absolutely brilliant book on how to learn French. And I read the whole book. Not much happened. But what did happen is that I realized that in order to actually do this work, I have to immerse myself. So if you want to learn French, go to Paris, spend 2 weeks with a French family. Nobody speaks a word of English. That will deepen your understanding. That will give you an opportunity to really learn to speak French. The same with the workshop. The book, the Choose Again 6-Step Process book, will absolutely give you all the information you need. That's true. And sometimes it's really important that that information is shared. It comes from other people. It comes with a different color. It comes with a different sense. And I deepen my understanding. I deepen my understanding, I'm speaking just for myself, every time I'm in a circle. Every time somebody does a process, I deepen my understanding of it, and I deepen my own healing at that moment. And that's what it's about. It's not about how long or when or do I have to. It's what are you looking for? So if I truly want to be at peace, I will do everything, including going to workshops. Do you have to? I will never say to anyone you have to do anything. But if I truly want to be at peace, I will seize every opportunity to practice. I always compare it to a sport. I used to play sports and I still play golf. If I want to be a half-decent golfer, I can read a book about golf and I'll learn a lot from it. But where am I going to get better as a golfer? On the range, when I hit 200 balls a day. When I play once a week and see how hitting those balls has affected my game. It's the same with the 6-step process. Practice it, absolutely, and go to a circle, go to a workshop, come to France, come to Costa Rica. Incredible opportunities to deepen your understanding. And now it's beginning to rain, so I hope you can hear that. Please ask questions as much as possible. We have about quite a few here that were sent in earlier, but I want to hear from people that are online right now. So if you have any question, please let me hear it.
What do you recommend I should do if I have difficulty retrieving childhood memories?
Somebody just asked, what do I do if I have difficulty finding childhood memories? That's a legitimate question, and a lot of people have difficulty with that. Here's the answer to that, which is really simple. When you read the 6-step process carefully, it asks you to connect, to go back with your feelings to the earliest memory. Be careful with what that says. It says your earliest memory. If your earliest memory is 2 weeks ago, then that is your earliest memory. So it isn't. I'll hang on a minute because God is sending a lot of beautiful rain down for us. And if you can still hear me, I'll continue talking. So
there's a question here from Ellen Denboer, who would like to know, her son, who's 24, is mentally handicapped and has been diagnosed with schizophrenia and autism, and he's on all sorts of drugs, so it's difficult to communicate with him. This is a friend's son. She can hardly help her son directly, but would like to be better equipped to help his mother, her friend. What can she do? What could she say? Which reasoning can I give her to feel the strength to cope with the situation?
Wow, I don't know if you could hear that question, but that is Okay, somebody just said, I can hear you through the rain. Well, that's incredible because I can't. So the question really was very involved, and it had to do with how can I help a friend that is in a difficult situation? Because I don't even want to go into details of the question because they don't really matter. But there's something, a friend of mine has a child, and that child is in difficulties. We don't need to know what that is. How do I feel when I look at my friend? Am I completely at peace? Do I want to help my friend so I get to feel better? Or do I want to help my friend because I want to help the self? And the self is the one that's completely unmoved, unaffected by whatever symptoms this person just wrote about. It's not about my friend, it's about me. How can I help myself? How do I return to peace myself? So if I'm concerned about how I can help a friend, I have to stop and say, it's not about helping a friend. We didn't open the center to help friends. I opened the center to create an environment that is completely and totally dedicated to my healing. So if I have a friend I'm concerned about, I take a step back, say, I'm not concerned about my friend actually, I'm concerned about me. That's who I'm concerned about. How do I address that? I address that by saying, what am I believing right now? Oh, there's a wonderful note. My 4-year-old Mike is, oh, my 4-year-old daughter says hello. Hello to you too. I love that. Okay, next question.
This one from Angela. What to do when you feel tired of all the effort after years of A Course in Miracles using the 6-step process too, but reach a point of surrender?
What do I do to reach a point of surrender? I would suggest reaching the point right now. Because surrender is what it's about. Surrender simply means that I throw up my hands and I say, I don't know. I don't know what this is for. I don't know what this is for. That is surrender. And then, once I've surrendered, then I can ask, what is this for? Tell me what is being offered here right now. Whatever I think it's for is not true. So my ego is tempted to say, the why question, why is this happening? The loving question, the surrender question is, I wonder what this is for. I wonder what's being offered. It has to be for me, because that is my faith-based position. That's how I walk around on the planet. It has to be for me. How is this for me? That's the question I learned to ask. And inherent in that question is the surrender. And the ultimate surrender is, of course, the absolute joyful acceptance of what is, and whatever that is. So whether it is my daughter is on drugs, my husband is unfaithful, whatever it is, I joyfully surrender to what is. I cannot do that as long as I let the ego tell me what is. And now I sound like Bill Clinton. The ego will tell me what it is. But I have no idea. So I say, no, thank you. I'm glad you told me once again what is. I don't know what is. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to ask my loving self, what is being offered? Okay?
Leah, could you elaborate on the idea that nothing ever goes wrong?
The idea that nothing ever goes wrong is a faith-based position. I can't prove it. I have no desire to prove it. I accepted it a long time ago. It has totally changed my life because I trust it. So once I surrender to the idea that nothing ever has gone wrong, nothing ever goes wrong, then I've opened the door to asking, what is this for? And then I'm also much, much, much more willing to take step 2 in our process. And for those of you that are new to our process, step 2 is, this is about me. Well, as long as something has gone wrong, step 2 is a guilt trip. Because if something did go wrong in my mind, then either it's my fault or it's your fault. And it's probably your fault. I'm pretty clear on that. But once I recognize nothing else gone wrong, then there's no fault, there's no blame, there's only loving curiosity. And we ask, what is this for? What is being offered right now? This feels terrible. And the ego says, I wish it hadn't happened, but it did happen. So surrender to what is and ask yourself what's being offered. Nothing has ever gone wrong. Let it in. And ask yourself, if that were true, how would that feel? And I can guarantee you, in the circle sometimes, when we have 12, 14, 15 people in a circle, and I say, close your eyes. And ask yourself, how would it feel if I knew at the deepest level of my heart that nothing has ever gone wrong? How would that feel? And then I look at all the faces with their eyes closed, and every single one of them lights up, has a smile, the muscles relax, and it's an amazing experience. Give yourself that gift. Nothing has ever gone wrong.
Leah has a question. She's been doing the 6-step process for an upset centering around rejection and anger. She thought she'd figured it out, but when she sees this person, she still experiences anger and discomfort. So does this mean she should just keep doing the 6-step process over and over until it goes away?
Well, it's sort of like the mother question. So when I meet this person and that person, I feel triggered, I feel upset, I feel just lack of peace. or anger or whatever it is, when I'm around that person, I say, thank you. You are reflecting something that I believe to be true about me. I wonder what that is. What am I seeing when I look at you? Because I'm not seeing you. There's an incredible line in lesson 78 of the course that most of you know because I use it a lot. And that says, he stands in dark. He stands in light. I am in the dark. He stands in light. I am in the dark. So that person doesn't trigger me. Nobody triggers me. What triggers me is a reflection of a belief that I already hold. And that belief then says, this is what you need to feel now. Now you should feel anger. Now you should feel sadness. Now you should feel worry. And that's what I feel because I'm listening to my beliefs, but I'm not my beliefs.
Jana Ray asks, she still has anger towards the person who is abusive to her. Will there be a point that she can actually let go?
Absolutely, there's a point, and that point is right now. Are you willing to let go? And the abusive question, I'm not sure whether this is the format to get into it, but I'll just give you the outline of how I would work with that and how we've worked with that in hundreds and hundreds of cases. And that is very simply this. The abusive person, the abuse did something to my body. There's no question. Nobody's arguing that. Nobody's saying, I don't believe you, it didn't happen. If it happened in your mind, it happened. That's all that matters. So somebody did something to your body. I acknowledge that. Who are you? Who's the I that identifies with the body? That's the ego. Something was done to your body. The beautiful, beautiful message you get from our work, and hopefully it goes in right now, is that you are not your body, and you were completely and totally unaffected by whatever anybody has ever done to you. The only thing I suffer from, when I go back to memories of abuse, that I called abuse, and I still, for lack of a better word, would call abuse, I'm now so clear that it happened to the body, number one, and what I'm suffering from is my interpretation. Who is the I that was done to? That I is unworthy, that I is not lovable, that I doesn't deserve to be safe, you name it. All of those beliefs. So once I transform those beliefs, the suffering that I experience and have experienced for 70 years from the abuse disappears automatically. Because I now know that who I am is untouched. Who I am cannot be hurt. Nothing outside of me can hurt me. Nothing outside of me can bring me anything I need. That's a beautiful teaching. In other words, step 2. It's a joyful responsibility. Next question.
Could you explain more about the concept of two different eyes?
Yeah, it's a concept. It's really a model that we work with. So what I work with, the model of the mind, is that there are 3 parts. The first part is the ego, and that's pretty well the only part anybody on the planet is familiar with because it runs the show. It makes all my decisions. It decides how I should feel. It decides who I should talk to. It decides who I should marry. It decides what kind of job I should get. In other words, it almost seems to be my entire life. However, at a very deep level, there's another I. And that I is the capital S self. And that self is the self that I am in truth. That's the essence of my being. And as Jared Jampolsky taught so brilliantly, the essence of my being is love. That's all it is. Now, how do I get from the ego self, which tells me the opposite, 24 hours a day, every minute of the day, to the loving self that says, with incredible compassion, you've never changed. You are love. How do I do that? I do that by recognizing that there is a third part to my mind, and that third part is what we call the decision maker. The decision maker, you can also call, is the adult in the room. The decision maker steps up and says, there is another way of seeing this. What you're believing right now cannot be true because you're upset. That's the job of the decision maker. And then it says, let's go ask your loving self, what would be a loving reaction to what just happened? So the decision maker turns from the ego to the loving self and says, help me see this differently. And then the loving self says, oh honey, there's a much better way of seeing this. There's a way of seeing this as pure love. There is only love. Let it in. That's the truth of who you are. So the three parts of the mind, the two I's are the small s self, the ego self that I made up, and the capital S self, which is unchangeable, eternal, infinite. We can learn to access that infinite self by practicing surrender, by practicing asking, by practicing the adult decision maker self to grow up, to ask the question, help me see this differently.
Angela's 6-year-old has a question. What do you do, Diederik?
Oh, wonderful. What a great question. What do I do nothing. Really, God, I love this question. What do I do? Well, I can give you a clinical answer, and that's what I do is basically watch my thoughts all day long, which is meditating. And whenever I have a thought that brings me something less than joy or pleasure or fun, to perhaps use language you understand a little better. So whenever I don't have fun, I go back and say, wow, why did I choose that? That's not a loving, fun experience. I'm going to choose a different experience. And that's what I do. And you can do the same thing. It's really fun and it's really easy once you get used to it. So I'm sure there are times that you're upset. And I'm sure there are times that you really believe that everything is terrible, that nobody loves you. And that's the time to say, that's not true. That's not true. And if you do that, you're doing exactly what I do. And you'll have a wonderful, wonderful life. There's a question on the screen here that I'll read out. And it says, I've been doing the 6-step process about an upset centering about rejection and anger. I thought I'd figured it out, but when I see this person, I'll still experience. I think we got that question earlier. So wonderful, that's answered.
There's one here from Donna. Studying the Course in Miracles, I find myself drawn to the idea of suicide. If I'm actually one with God, then my current painful existences seem unnecessary.
Yeah, and if you're really studying the Course, which you say you do, then you will also recognize the fact that the Course addresses the idea of suicide very directly. It says suicide is pointless because there is no death. And why is there no death? Because you're not a body. Now, in my own case, I used to have suicide thoughts, and I still on occasion have them, but they're now so weak that they really don't play a role anymore. But what stopped me in the past? What stopped me, say, 15 years ago? What stopped me is that I am completely clear and have absolutely no doubt about the fact that this is my dream, that I am the dreamer. So in the dream, I can commit suicide. But I'm so clear that when I do that, nothing changes. I'm still in the dream. I still have the self-hatred that the ego had. The ego is still there. Nothing has changed. So let go of the idea of suicide. Nothing is decided in death. That is not a decision. Everything is decided in life. So the more you commit to the truth of you, the less the idea of suicide will come in and the less attractive it will be. And honestly, just think about this for a second. If suicide were the answer, 7 billion people would commit suicide today because it's the answer. It brings me joy. So the answer is no, that's not going to work. Suicide will not work. It's not the answer. Let it go. Go back to decide to live. And what does that mean? Decide to fall in love with the self. Let go of the idea that you're a body and that by destroying the body, you can get what you want. It won't work. Guaranteed. I love you.
Christy Hill asks, at what age would you recommend I could start teaching the 6 steps to a child or young teen?
Are you talking about your age or the child?
Child's age.
I know. I would say right now. But having said that, you start not by teaching anyone anything. You start by demonstrating it. You start by living it at home. You start by sitting at the dining room table with your kids and saying, you know what? Somebody cut me off in traffic today, and I got so angry I gave him the finger. And your little 5-year-old daughter will look at you. Mom gives somebody the finger? Yes, Mom does. And then you go, and you know what I found out? It was the belief that I don't matter. I have a belief that I don't matter. That's not true. That's not true. That's a mistaken belief. Now your kids are listening to you, and why are they listening to you right now? Because you're not teaching them anything. You're teaching them through demonstration. You're showing them what you do. This is what I do when I get upset. You don't ever use the word you. You don't say to your kid, you should do the 6-step process, and this is how it works. Your kid couldn't care less. Your kids want to see you happier. Your kids want to see you, for once, act differently when there's a trigger. That's how you teach them. And don't worry about their age. They get it at a really, really early age. They understand what you're doing. They understand, and they don't want you to be upset, because when you're upset, guess what? It's their fault. So when you demonstrate to them that when you're upset, it has nothing to do with them. So you demonstrate to them that when you're upset, you do step 2. And in step 2, you say, it's not about my kids, it's not about my husband, it's not about my job, it's not about the person who cut me off in traffic, it's about me. Your kids will hear that. They will love that. Do that consistently, and they'll understand the 6-step process.
Leah asks, can you recommend a concise way to explain Choose Again and the 6-step process that she can use when she's telling friends about it?
Well, first I would be really careful about wanting to tell friends about it. That's my first sort of warning. It's not really a warning, it's just be aware of it. What has happened in my case, and perhaps it will happen to you also, friends will ask you, what are you doing? You seem different. What have you done? I saw you a month ago and you were really close to being depressed. You were very sad, at least as far as I could tell. And now you seem joyful. What are you doing? And then you can say, I discovered a way. I discovered a number of things. One thing I discovered is that my entire life is the result of who I think I am. That was an interesting discovery for me. I didn't realize that before. I thought my entire life came from my character or my personality. But now I know better. My entire life comes from who I think I am. Once I discovered that, I also learned the process to undo the self that I think I am. And that process is called the 6-step process. It has 6 steps, brilliantly. And once I follow that 6-step process, then A, I find out what my beliefs are, and B, I have a way of undoing them. And here comes the rain.
This one says,
Wait, I'm not done. This may be a longer rainfall than we ordered. We ordered short bursts of rain to have a little break, but it's overdoing it a little bit, so we're getting more rain right now. Next question.
how do I simultaneously recognize that I'm not a body, yet still love and honor my body? I have a severe dislike of my body, and knowing I'm a spirit enhances my desire to project onto my physical form.
I don't really understand the question, but what I can say is that my body is my vehicle. That's the simplest way of seeing it. My body is my vehicle. Now, I don't know if you own a car, but if you do, you take care of your car. You check the tires. You give it a lube and oil job once in a while. You give it a car wash even sometimes. You make sure that the engine is running properly. You make sure you have new spark plugs from time to time. You put the right gas in. That's how you treat your body. That doesn't mean you identify with it any more than you identify with your car. So if you got a dent in your car, are you deeply hurt? Yeah, some people are, because they identify with their car. But my body is my car. It's not who I am. My car is not who I am. Who I am is infinite spirit. That's who I am. Yeah, next question.
If you do, can you elaborate on the idea that nothing ever goes wrong?
Well, I think we just did.
You did that, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, there's a question here that just came up on the screen. I sometimes feel trapped in my victimhood and emotions and want to resist it. Then when I do 6 steps, it doesn't work that moment. Should I surrender more to the feelings? Well, first of all, I would never say it didn't work because I don't know. I would say every time I do a 6-step process or every time I do this process, it has worked. I will not go back to my ego and ask, did it work? That's number one. Number two, if I do a process on being a victim and I still feel that same feeling that the belief that I'm a victim chooses for me, then I go back and say, maybe there's another belief. Or maybe my addiction to being a victim is so strong that I'm not willing to let go right now. It's my entire identity. If I'm not a victim, ask yourself, who would be off the hook? Am I willing to let my father off the hook? Am I willing to let my mother off the hook? Am I willing to let my partner off the hook? In other words, am I willing to take total ownership of the idea of victim? Can I be a victim? As long as I believe that, then anybody and anything can do something to me at any given time, and that is not true. So I have to let go of my insane addiction to victim. I'm not a victim. Everything that seems to happen to me, I have asked for and received as I have asked. That's solid. Go with that. Go back to that. Go back to ownership and surrender to the truth. Check in, how do you feel? Of course. Is that a familiar feeling? Yes, it is. That feeling comes from, I'm a victim. Is that true? Am I a victim? No, I'm not. I made that up. How do I feel now? A lot better. Go back again. Do it till you feel completely at peace with whatever just happened, which the ego diagnosed as a victim position. Go back to it till it no longer is. Do you smile? Okay?
Do you want to hold up your book or talk about where you can get it? Or the online course coming? Right now there's no more questions. Oh, here we go.
I have a question here on the screen. My wife and I have been studying ACIM for 2 years. As former Jehovah's Witnesses, I presume that means, we feel we finally found the truth. My wife tends to be an isolationist. She's decided to stop attending a couple of local ACM groups, realizing that, it disappeared.
That everything is our classroom. Should it matter that she avoids association at times?
That's a brilliant question, Joe, but I'm a little curious as to why you're in your wife's business, but we'll let that go for now. If I am avoiding anything, if I'm treasuring my so-called splendid isolation, then there's a belief. And there's a belief, it is not a loving thought. It's a fearful thought, and the thought says, I can be hurt. Or whatever it says for you. But look at it lovingly. Is it true that I can be hurt at an ACIM group? Not likely. I've rarely seen people getting hurt in an ACIM group, but this doesn't happen. So there's something else going on. So the way to deal with that, Joe, first of all, it's really not your business. Second of all, how do you feel when your wife doesn't want to join you at the ACIM groups? How does that feel? What does that say about you, that she's not joining you? Having done that process, being completely at peace with her going or not going, then you can ask. Then you can ask, how do you feel when you think of being in a group? And your wife will answer, because you are, I presume, in what is called a holy relationship. And a holy relationship is in which you've given each other permission to question what you believe is true. So in this case, but you have to be at peace. You can't do it because you want to manipulate this person. You can only do it because you're already at peace. And your compassion does not allow your partner to be not in peace. So you go there and you ask, what do you believe in? What would a group do to you? What is your fear? She doesn't have to go to groups. Absolutely not. She doesn't ever have to go to a group. But if I say I don't want to, or there's something about it that I don't like, then I would want to visit that. I want to say, well, I wonder what that's really all about. Okay? Let me know how you go.
Sabrina asks, sometimes when I'm in a circle, I check out and disconnect and lose track of what's happening. I've had trouble speaking if I'm asked to do a forgiveness. Now I feel like I have performance anxiety.
So sometimes when I circle, I check out and disconnect. Why would I do that? What would be the purpose? Well, the purpose is very simple. What is the circle for? What's the purpose of the circle? Healing. Oh, okay, I forgot. So the purpose for the circle is healing. Now I check out. Very simple. Tell myself I don't want to heal. Everybody's process in the circle is my process. Everybody's process in the circle is my process. I would never check out in the circle. I would always be listening to every word, doing every process with the person in the circle. It's my process. I'm there for me. I'm not there for you. I'm not there for anybody else. I'm there for me. I want to heal. And there's, from my point of view, no more effective therapeutic environment than a healing circle. So if you check out, be honest with yourself. I don't want to heal. And the second part of your question was performance anxiety. That's a simple process. It's an upset, step 2. It's about you. Step 3, how do you feel? That feeling of anxiety. Is that familiar? Step 4, when did you first feel that feeling? What happened? How old were you when you first felt that? And then lastly, what does this feeling say about you? Fill in the blank. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. I'm not important. If I say the wrong thing, I won't be loved. If I say the wrong thing, people will abandon me or attack me. So go after that. Don't believe it. Don't buy into it. It's not who you are. Hope that answers your question.
Another one. Sometimes when I do step 2, I feel I'm being narcissistic.
Well, narcissism has become incredibly popular with the current president, but I want to make sure that you know what that word means. It probably means, if I can take a wild guess as what you mean by that I'm selfish, that I'm doing this because I'm selfish. The good news is it's the opposite. They're selfish with the small s self, which comes from the belief that there's not enough and I need to go get it because nobody will give it to me. That's egotism, that's selfishness. Narcissism says there's no one outside of me, which is absolutely true, but it's the ego that says it. That's the difference. So the ego says there's no one outside of me. The loving self, the capital S self, knows that that is true. The ego says it out of fear. There's no one outside of me because nobody loves me. Or I'm not lovable. Or there's something wrong with me. Or I shouldn't have been born. You name it. But don't worry about being selfish. If you're selfish in the capital S self sense, everybody benefits.
Can you speak to that I can't make a wrong decision? That's Gina's question.
Yeah, I can make a wrong decision is again a faith-based position, which is tied directly to nothing ever goes wrong. I mean, how can I have accepted that nothing ever goes wrong and I made the wrong decision? Now, that doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean we condone bad behavior. But it does mean that whatever decision I make does not change who I am, number one. And number two, whatever decision I make will provide me with another opportunity to return to who I am in truth. So if I do the wrong, I make a wrong mistake. I make a mistake. You ask me to go get milk and I come back with diesel oil. That's a mistake. Is it a mistake that changes the essence of me? No. Is it a mistake that will bring up some feelings? Absolutely. I've done something wrong. And whenever that feeling comes up, that feeling is chosen to, you're not lovable. There's something wrong with you. Nobody will ever love you. You'll always do things wrong. You check in for yourself which one of those rings a bell. But some of them will. You cannot make a mistake in truth. In time, we make mistakes all the time.
Kevin's question, the corporate structure in my experience is a race to the top, and to get sucked into that race is so easy. I find myself doing this process over and over, and yet I still have the urge to try to be on top. It comes up every day in so many ways, and I feel like I'm still creating experiences to identify with my ego. Why is that?
Why is that? Because you're identifying with your ego. That's why. So if you still think you can climb to the top and become something, you have forgotten the very simple teaching that your worth is established by God. There's nothing you can do to change it. You can rise to the top as much as you want. It won't change who you are. It won't make you bigger, better, smarter. It doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, the Course says the opposite. It says everything I do to make my value greater in my sight hinders me further and prevents me from knowing who I am. So as long as I give validity to climbing, whatever you want to call it, getting a better job, being more important, having more money, having a trophy partner, a better car, I forget who I am. And the more of those I do, the more who I am becomes obscure to me. So be honest with yourself and keep asking, who am I? Is the I going to change when I get this job? No, that I is the same. Whether I'm a dishwasher, whether I'm a teacher, whether I'm a bus driver, that I remains the same. What is your purpose for doing your job? And once you're clear that that purpose is only to give and receive love, you'll love your job. It's a fantastic job once you know that that's the purpose. But we've come to the end of the hour. I'd like to say one thing about this incredible book. I don't know if you've read it. It's an absolutely astonishing piece of work. I've actually read it. I think it's amazing. And it's very, very useful. What we're doing, in addition to having this book published in Holland in March in a new language, it's also being translated in German and some other languages, but in Holland it comes out in March. What we've done, we've designed an online program. And that online program is sort of like taking a 4 or 5 day workshop, where you really deepen your understanding with practical exercises and practical things you can do on a day-to-day basis to deepen your understanding. And that program will be coming out probably within a month or so. And we'll let you know all about it. It will be incredibly effective. We've seen the first draft of it. We looked at it and I said, wow, that's a 5 day workshop. There's so much information in that program. You'll love to have it. And you can share it with your friends, with your kids, with your daughter. It will be out probably within 2 months. And it's been a great joy to be with you. And I love all the people from all over the world that have been here. It's been an unbelievable joy. And we're going to do it again. And next time, guess what? We'll be a little bit more advanced in our technology. We might actually come in on time. We might actually make sure there's no rain, which could have been a disturbance. I don't know if it was or not. But we'll see you next time. And I love you. Have a wonderful day. I've had this